Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight number 44 with service to California. We ask that you please fasten your headphones at this time, secure your podcasting device, and remember, if you see some passengers making out, don't worry. They probably are only brother and sister.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Max Singer and Rich Inman. How you boys doing today?
To pull back the curtain a little bit on this podcast, Geoff doesn't tell us what he's going to do for the opening things, and I swear to God, I would have bet that you're going to say on our flight with the destination of heaven. Oh, I really thought you were going to do that.
Oh, man, I'm worse after that cold open, but I'm excited to be here with you guys.
You know, I figured I'd rip off the incest Band-Aid right at the top, because, ladies and gentlemen, this week...
Oh, does Procter & Gamble make those?
This week we are doing the 90s classic of Seventh Heaven. If you want to watch it before you listen to us or are watching us on YouTube, you can find it on Hulu. But Max, for folks who might have found us for the first time, maybe
thanks for tuning in for this one for your first episode. Congrats.
Thanks for tuning in to our alternative title, 3 Jews Talking About Christianity for an hour and 10 minutes. But Max, for those folks who are joining us for the first time, what have they found?
Totally. So if you're wondering why 3 Jews are talking about the Jessica Biel classic Seventh Heaven, it is strictly because a friend of the pod tagged us in an Instagram post and was like, you guys should do Seventh Heaven. And here we are. So here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn a little bit more about how they came to be, if they're effective pilots and make us want to watch more, and if they can be made today. Go back and check out our episodes wherever you get your podcasts from. Go watch our smiling faces on YouTube if you want to see those. And if it is your first time flying with us, well, buckle up, baby, and welcome aboard.
And Rich, what is, I'm almost scared to ask you this, what is your question of the week?
What a terrific question, and I poured myself a fat glass of the blood of Christ for this one, and I'm excited to get into this. I am actually drinking red wine for everyone listening at home. When did this come out? This is 98?
1996 was the first episode.
1996. So this is the middle of the Clinton years. What the hell do we think was going on with Christians in 1996 that they felt compelled to make this show?
Okay, well, I'm going to give a shout out to my boy, Pope John Paul. Pope John Paul was reigning supreme. And, you know, sometimes I make jokes about all this stuff, but I will say, PJP, pretty cool guy. Specifically in one friend of the pod. He's listening up in the good place. But one of the things specifically that I will give a shout out to is Pope John Paul definitely made it a little bit easier for folks like me to marry folks like my wife, who is a Catholic, by making it possible to not get married in a church. So shout out to the man. Max, what about you?
I want to clarify for those listening at home that Pope John Paul II is not on our episode about The Good Place. I just wanted to make that very clear.
But he did approve it.
And listen to our episode
he
about
blessed
The Good
that
Place.
episode.
I think what was going on with Christians is in the 90s, you start to get into like a real like counterculture arc. I think you get like starting in like the late 80s with like hair metal into grunge and, you know, the rock star messiah that is Kurt Cobain, into films like Kids, like really edgy kind of provocative teen features that were coming out in the 90s. And I think there's just sort of like a shocker, moral panic about these things. And I think that Seventh Heaven is maybe a response to some of that, where it's like we were getting kind of edgy, so now we're going to do sort of a throwback to like kind of family value style stuff that was maybe big like in the 60s and early 70s. I don't know. That would be my guess.
That's such a good point.
Rich, what about you? What are your thoughts on this?
I think Max makes a really, really good point. I think we see like I think there's just like kind of panics in art in general that have to respond to the trending, like, I don't know, collective thought, or what people think the collective thought is for the US. And, you know, what's the Michael J. Fox sitcom that he got famous for? Is that Family
Family
Ties?
Ties.
Family Ties seems to be a like a conservative counterculture thing in the same direction that that Seventh Heaven is. You know, in the same way that art and TV and movies got kind of batshit insane at the end of the Bush terms and stuff like that. The album American Idiot came out during the Bush terms as a rebellion to that sort of like blind patriotism thing. And yeah, I think Max, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I don't know what the hell this is. So let's, or why it got 11 seasons, but let's find out.
But yeah, media definitely comes in waves. I mean, if you look at the 80s, you have a show like Family Ties, where, you know, Alex P. Keaton, played by Michael J. Fox, it's a lot of initials there. You know, he made it cool to be a yuppie. He made that really desirable. You look at one of the biggest movies of that time being Oliver Stone's Wall Street. You know, greed is good. There was a certain ethos that was in that era, and I think the 90s had, you know, the dark alternative, with the exception of Frasier, and, you know, Seventh Heaven just like counteracts that, you know, dark alt edge.
It's just so crazy that this and News Radio came out in the same year, because can you imagine having like arguably, and Seinfeld, can you imagine arguably having like some of the best portrayals uh of like, I don't know, middle-aged, like big city living, and then in comparison you just have, so this is also like an ABC show, right? If I'm not mistaken.
This was on Warner Brothers, actually.
This is on Warner Brothers. Okay.
We'll definitely talk about that a little bit. It's very interesting as a whole.
And for the record, Stephen Root could absolutely play Reverend Eric Camden, but Stephen Collins could not play Jimmy James.
Let's see it.
Well, Rich, thank you for definitely a little bit of a different question of the week. Before we take too much of a deep dive into Seventh Heaven, let's go through a quick synopsis. Eric Camden, a minister, and his wife, Annie, deal with the drama of having 7 children, ranging from toddlers to adults, with families of their own. I have some bones to pick with that synopsis that we'll talk about in a little bit, but Max,
we already did bones.
What went into making this show?
So today we are talking about the pilot episode of Seventh Heaven, titled Anything You Want, which aired on the WB August 26, 1996. And we're going to be talking very briefly about the show's creator, Brenda Hampton. Hampton, of course, we have previously covered on this podcast for her work in creating the classic ABC family / freeform drama, The Secret Life of the American Teenager. Go back and check out that episode if you want to learn a little bit more about Hampton's backstory and her foray into the industry as a whole. But we're going to pick things up a little bit into her career to start today. Hampton was a writer on classic sitcoms of the early 90s, including Blossom and Mad About You. And while working as a staff writer on Mad About You, she's able to get a meeting with Aaron Spelling, legendary producer, one of the biggest names working in TV at this time and in the decade and two prior. Not with any real inclination of what's going to happen, just because she wants to meet Aaron Spelling. I mean, why wouldn't you if you were a young screenwriter working in Hollywood?
It's 90210 in Melrose Place, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
So he's like on a hot streak right now with like, you know, being the old man, executive producing teen shows on Fox. He's doing great. And she pitches this idea about, you're not going to believe this, a functional family. And
but are they?
Spelling loves the idea. It goes over super well in the pitch meeting. And the idea of, kind of like I, you know, referenced before, the idea of like harkening back to like old, you know, the old classic black and white comedies of the 50s and 60s, these, you know, moral domestic family style shows. And this show, Seventh Heaven, becomes part of the first ever fall lineup at WB. WB went on air in January of 95, and they've kind of found themselves as a channel where they're doing a lot of like interesting left of center comedies with like, you know, big, you know, stand-ups basically playing versions of themselves, and they're trying to get into dramas here with this one. So The show gets a pilot, they film it, and it does not test well.
Go
They
figure.
almost shop this thing in production. It does really poorly with audience scoring. And for whatever reason, probably being Aaron Spelling behind it, they decide to go forward and give it a series order. Of the 4 original dramas that premiered in that 1996 lineup at WB, this is the only show that made it past a year.
Wow.
Oh my god. Well, okay,
So we've got
so wait.
3 even better shows to cover in the upcoming weeks.
So they took studio notes from test audiences, listened to none of it, and just threw it on the air anyways. Like, what is that? Is that what I'm like getting? Is that what we're getting at here?
That's showbiz, baby.
Fuck the audience.
Wait, Max, is there anything else that we need to know about this?
You know, I wish I could tell you there is, and I'm sure there is out there. This is a surprisingly hard show to research, despite it being the longest running like drama of its time. I mean, when we get the legacy episodes, the numbers are going to make your head explode.
It's upsetting.
It's not a show that has like crazy oral histories being written about and things, at least not that I found.
I
so
have
if
some
crazy backstory about how Seventh Heaven came from pilot script to TV screen, let us know. We would love to know more about this. Jessica Biel, come on the pod. But until then, I think we just need to talk about what we learned.
Cool. Well,
Jeff, we're how far into this? Jeff is already done.
Okay, so I'm just gonna start us off. Let's talk about this pilot. My first line is, Jesus Christ, this is the 90s. We zoom in on a couple. This is Eric and Annie Camden waking up on a Saturday morning, fully clothed in what appears to be their office clothing. I don't know how much more clothing.
It's a conservative family. They fell asleep in their sleep khakis.
Well, Rich, it's funny you call them a conservative family, because then, you know what? First thing when you get up, the funny thing about this show, and I'm going off on a tangent already. When you go on Hulu and you look up this show, usually they give you themes about the show.
Sure.
It's like, ooh, action, ooh, thriller. This one says religious and spiritual. And within the first 30 seconds, the Camdens are trying to fuck. Right then and there.
This was surprisingly the horniest show that I was not expecting at all. This is
Thank you.
Also, they were like, okay, it's called Seventh Heaven because it's a family of 7. And the more and more kids that pile into this clown car situation that they have happening in bed right now, of all these children getting in bed with them, and just like the reveal of all these kids is so like upsetting. Like, someone needs to stop this family from fucking immediately.
The editing of all of these kids entering the bedroom too, it feels like they had to do like a full strike back to 1 every single time a kid entered the room. It's so clunky in how they edit. It's like, all right, and now you go, and now you go, and now you go.
Yeah, that one stagehand is just back there, just absolutely throwing these kids through the door.
So, I was watching this with my partner, and she's right now watching the documentary Eyes Wide Shut about the Duggar family and that cult, and she was like, "Oh my god,
that's not a documentary, buddy.
Are they the real life Duggar family of the TV world?" And I was like, "No, that's the Duggar family." But this is just absolutely insane. And then, like, to top it all off, before we get the most 90s montage, and I can't wait to talk about the song that's behind it, we have their oldest son, who's like a junior in high school, be like, "Hey, mom and dad, don't you wink, wink, sleep in on Saturdays?" And then usher out all the kids so that mom and dad can, just
Matt's
go and
too
make...
familiar.
possibly child number 6 and 7. Like, it's absolutely insane.
Okay, so I'm gonna Bernie Mac talk to America for a minute. America, this is Bernie Mac talking. Families with lots of children are not interesting. Stop trying to make them interesting. The Octomom, John and K plus 8, the Duggar family, the movie Cheaper by the Dozen. It's not interesting. Stop. What is the fascination with having so many fucking kids? I do not understand.
It makes it too expensive to go to the movies. You can't get a cool car. All the cars that fit families that big are lame as hell.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. Steve Martin drives all of his kids in a school bus together. Stop it.
Well, let's move forward a little bit and talk about the theme song I did not know existed. That was extremely on the nose. If you didn't know what show you were watching, Seventh Heaven is the name of the theme song.
Go figure.
Quick fun fact about this theme song, because I had to look up who was the mastermind behind this. The man's name is Steve Plunkett. He was the guitarist and lead vocalist for the band Autograph, which has multiple Billboard Hit 100s. So speaking about 80s hair bands, there's just this man who wrote this song after he got kicked out of Autograph.
For rocking too hard. However, if you swap out his song for anything with a minor key, this credit sequence becomes an in memoriam.
We all remember the Camden family.
So, but after this intro, where we're seeing this loving family, we then get the parents being horny as hell again, just going at it in the kitchen.
Horny dream sequence in the kitchen. What is this camera work? What is this lighting? What are the mom's knife skills? Good God, that's how you lose a finger.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, she cuts vegetables like Kourtney Kardashian. I don't know what the hell's happening right here.
It's terrifying to me, because we watched Sex and the City so recently, and that was only made 2 years after this. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, Sex and the City would even have the decency not to have the parents basically fucking in the room right next to the kids who are waiting to be fed dinner and patiently waiting at a table while one child is begging to say grace. It is the most important thing he has ever done in his life.
Oh, yeah, little kiss ass absolutely itching to say grace.
he wants to wish for that dog. Okay, so they are 4 minutes in, 4 minutes of runtime, including the title sequence, and they're already throwing in someone saying grace. They're making this extremely Christian right off the bat, and I get that there's the reveal of him being the Reverend later, but good God, can we just give it a second before you throw the Christian shit in there? I mean, it's not. Is that what makes it interesting for people? Is that really just oh my God, finally Christians on TV? Finally someone I can relate to. Is that really what it is? Because they go to church 16 minutes in too.
Maybe.
Maybe. Is that the draw? I don't watch shows just because it's extremely Jewish. I don't watch what is it?
Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I don't watch Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't watch Seinfeld. I don't watch Broad City because it's very Jewish. Why do Christians want this?
So would you both be surprised if I said I expected us to be in church more in this TV show?
It's not a workplace comedy.
Because we were only in church for maybe 90 seconds. And Rich, I'm so sorry I interrupted that amazing joke. But
And when we go to church, it's just for a joke. The church scene is one of the few actual jokes in this episode.
Yeah, pew pew, am I right?
God damn it, Rich, you're on one today. So
I'm in an altered state, get it? But
at this, I need to keep on going. At this dinner table,
you really don't.
We learn a little bit about everyone's problems in this sense of what's happening in everyone's life. For Simon, Simon really wants to say grace because he really, really wants a dog. Lucy, who is our second youngest child or daughter, is a temperamental teenager who we come to find out really, really just wants to have her period. Then we have
And that's
Matt.
it. That's her entire episode. That's all 44 minutes for Lucy.
Then we have Matt, who's the oldest son. Matt has a date going on later. And then we also have Jessica Biel playing Mary Camden, who's missed 2 free throws at her basketball game.
Free throws, though. She keeps referring to them as foul shots.
Foul
and I'm kind of bothered by that. Just say free throws like every other normal teenager.
I do remember them calling that in Hey Arnold.
We're going to get to Mary Camden playing basketball later, I'm sure. She has no game. They keep talking about how she's like the freshman who made varsity and like how great she is. No, her form is terrible. She's clunky dribbling the ball. She just does not look like she's got it on the court.
She jumps when she's shooting foul shots, which is, unusual. That's unnecessary energy. I will give a shout out because Max, there is a reference to another TV Pilots episode with one of the actresses in this pilot. And that is Mackenzie Roseman, who plays Ruthie, the youngest of the children, had a small series of episodes on Secret Life of an American Teenager with Brenda Hampton.
Oh, love when you keep it in the family.
Yeah, so do they. And speaking of the incest subplot, let's get onto that one.
So yeah, let's get on to our first instance of just questionableness. I have to mention that there was some making out of the parents in front of Simon that they just like sort of kept on going. Max, what is on your mind?
All right, so after dinner, the garbage disposal breaks, and Mom is, on her back fixing the garbage disposal when Dad just shows up and starts trying to get with her, like right there on the kitchen floor. And the show has a pattern where it's Eric Camden makes a move on his wife, and then like kind of generic iMovie underscoring starts playing, and like she's like lightly moaning, and the entire thing has just like cheap, shitty Skinamax vibes to it, where it's just like little bit of jazz while 2 adults are making out over a broken appliance. Like, oh, are you here to fix my garbage disposal?
Oh, honey, I got stuck in the dishwasher again.
I don't know if I can fit everything in there. Okay, so I'm talking about...
By the way, garbage disposal and like the euphemisms you would have to make for garbage disposal, one of the least sexy kitchen appliances possible. Like bottom 5 least sexy kitchen appliances.
Yeah, is it going to suck down all those cauliflower bits, honey?
Max and Rich, I'm going to challenge us. What are the other 4 least sexy kitchen appliances to reference to sex?
Categories
Rich,
on the board. This is the Inman family up on Family Feud. Name the top 4 kitchen appliances. Number 1's oven, because you could die in there. Show me oven.
Okay. Oh God. Least sexy kitchen. Oh, colanders. Colanders are not sexual.
Wait. What? How is that an appliance?
Just kitchen things. We're expanding here.
Oh, okay. All right.
I am going to throw an immersion blender. I think that might be a little bit dangerous.
Oh no, super hot. That's how you make sauces and soups.
Oh, there we go. Nothing sexier than a good sauce.
That's right. This podcast is horny for soup. Put that on a shirt.
KitchenAid sponsor us.
Rich, any others?
I'm going a nugget ice maker. Like it makes the good ice, but it breaks down a lot.
And then I'm just gonna say a knife. A knife isn't really that sexy. If you're using it during sex, it's dangerous. With that being said, when the parents aren't furiously trying to procreate another child, they are trying to parent in this instance. And we get to see the splitting of the mom is speaking to Simon about getting a dog, and then the dad is speaking to Lucy about having her period. Or at least they're attempting to do these things. This is really our first I think, true instance of watching this show trying to be almost like lesson of the week show, right? Of like,
I would say they're also kind of setting the tone for wanting to have like cool appearing parents, because I feel like this show wouldn't have had this. The show is like, I don't know. They want to show the parents talking about subjects that were, I guess, for 1996 TV, like a little bit taboo, but it still feels like something they could have like handled on the Brady Bunch. Like none of this is new Warren territory, but they're like, oh, but these extremely Christian parents are going to solve modern problems like women or girls becoming women. So I think that's what they were trying. What they attempted to set the tone with was, we're going to talk about real shit. And we're going to do it in a way that's understanding, but also with a Christian message. And boy, I can't wait to show you guys the game of the week, because they get more and more crazy I
was going to say, at least in the pilot, the entire thing just kind of gives like prime time after school special.
100%. You know what doesn't give after school special vibes is let's go and talk about Matt and I'm just going to say Jessica Biel talking about...
Her character's name is Mary, by the way.
Yeah, Matt and Mary. Oh, Jesus Christ, I just got those references.
Or is it Lucy?
I think you're...
No, Lucy's the younger one. Mary's right. Sorry.
Yeah, Matt and Mary are practicing foul shooting. And you know what's foul? Mary basically says, I don't know how to kiss, and no boy wants to kiss someone who's taller than them. Jessica Biel is 5'7", just for those who are wondering and wanted to do that Google search. I saved you the 5 seconds. But the other thing is, she then proceeds to say, I don't know how to do it. You could help me. Max, please.
I'm so glad you didn't call me for this
to tell us what then we get to see with our own eyes.
Why'd you have to pick me? So
your name comes first on the call sheet.
Yeah, it's the old, how do teenagers practice kissing? Do you use a pillow? Do you do that thing where you kind of, for those watching on the YouTube at home, where you kind of put your hand like this to like make it talk? And do you practice?
I am learning so much right now.
Or do you, try to work out the mechanics on your older brother's cheeks, on where your hand goes and how you maneuver? It's such a big ick, and it's such like a weird. I don't know. It's just weird. I don't like it. I don't like talking about it. It was creepy to see.
While you guys were off researching real shit about this show, I hit the Reddit page for Seventh Heaven. Shout out Seventh Heaven Reddit fans. I will be posting this episode for you later. I looked through a thread of like craziest moments of the TV show, which is going to be my game of the week. And a lot of them referenced this moment, which is like, it's insane to me that one of the craziest moments of the show happens in the pilot. This is like what you're doing to set the pace and tone of the show. And the thing that you like really swing for the fences is like a minor incest subplot. Like, I do not understand this.
So 2 things. One, if you don't worry, Matt and Mary do not make out.
They don't.
Because
hey, spoilers.
You know who comes and saves the fucking day in this instance? It's Eric Camden going out to take the trash out, who then just doesn't stop them, just sort of quizzically looks at the two of them like, wait, let them cook. Like, let's see.
Them cook. No. Jeff just officially retired the phrase "let them cook" because that's not what that means.
Let them cook. Let them go at it.
No. The official stance of this podcast is if there is a troubling incest happening in front of you, do not in fact have to let them cook.
I am not.
Don't let them cook. Don't even let them get takeout. They don't even get a meal.
I am not condoning Eric Camden's actions as a parent, because this is the wild thing for a show that WB was like, hey, this is going to be our first. One of our first big dramas, and we're going to be like, this is going to be the moral consciousness of America, right? Where like,
sure ain't.
And I just have that, I have written in my notes, like, Incest, okay. Swearing, fuck off. We do not swear in this family. Like that is the wildest shit. That there was not just one writer in this room. There were multiple writers who were like, it's really fucking funny. Like, when you like almost make out with your younger sister, like that's so fucking funny.
Boy, who among us?
Let's put that in the notes.
It's also around this point in the episode where I have also just gotten sick of the acoustic guitar underscoring on everything.
It ain't gonna stop. It ain't gonna stop.
I don't think we've done a show that has more underscoring in general, let alone congrats to Seventh Heaven on being the first show to be scored entirely by the free samples on iMovie.
So, I'll tell you what show does have that much acoustic guitar, and I reference it in the episode. It's Secret Life. Secret Life. There's half of the captions are just upbeat guitar music. That was half.
John Mayer wishes he was in this pilot.
This really inspired John Mayer's career.
So Eric Camden looks at Matt and is like, "Hey, we're gonna go hang out before your date." We get to proceed to see Eric Camden try to be so fucking cool by playing in a pool hall and knocking down every ball.
Christians love billiards, by the way. I don't know how else to explain it.
I will say too, him hitting every single shot was like the most badass part of the show. This is like the only. This is like what's the movie where Tom Cruise plays a pool shark? I can't remember anymore.
For the Color of Money.
The Color of Money. And yeah, this is like they're trying so hard to give like a little bit of like coolness and edge to these characters, and watching him sink these shots is like the funniest part.
Well, like also, I will say this was the first of. So the reason they're at the pool hall is because Matt is smoking cigarettes, which he exclaims, "Hey, at least it's not pot. Fuck off, Matt."
No, this guy's absolutely ripping heaters. I love this guy. He's like,
ripping heaters and shooting pool.
Poorly.
So in another world, this scene's cool as hell.
Yeah, but I actually
liked The Color of Money.
For me, I personally liked the parenting in this situation of like, hey, I know you're smoking cigarettes. I give you an allowance. How much do the cigarettes cost? You owe me $20 because I'm not paying for them. Proceeding to the offer of, hey, you need a job. I found a job for you. Go, and you're going to go and start in a few days.
Oh, man.
But please come to church tomorrow. It would really mean a lot to your mother. And this is the first reference of like church in the importance of church in this pilot by any means of the word. Max, it looks like you have something on your mind.
I just want to know where this gorgeous, bright, clean, suburban pool hall is, because any place I've ever gone to play billiards in LA has just been like gross and dark and sticky, and like people are putting dollars on the tables to like claim who's up next, and the whole vibe is generally 100% more fighty. You would definitely never like go to one of these places and be like, and I'll have a cup of coffee and like, hang out and, listen to jazz while I shoot pool, with my underage son. I would like to go here. It seems like a fun family place to hang out.
Well, then you'll love Spin, the ping pong bar owned by Susan Sarandon.
Well, Max, if you love that place, then you're gonna really love the next scene that we have. We're going to church, and this
feels like a stretch.
And we see the Camden family all in the front row, and this is where we learn that Eric Camden is the minister of the local church. This scene, and Rich, you sort of referenced it, this scene is entirely almost used for a joke, because earlier the mom spoke to Lucy and gave her the line of, what was it, like every time has a season or something of that sort.
Like the song from the Birds. My dad makes this joke when we go to funerals.
Jesus Christ.
This passage of Ecclesiastes is referenced in the song "Turn." I think it's like "Turn, Turn" by the Birds.
Yeah.
To everything. Once again, just like an absolute like swing and a miss of trying to make this guy look cool as a reverend, but he's like this reveal of him being the reverend of the church made me just like audibly groan, because I thought it was just going to be a Christian family, and then I'm like, oh, this is about a reverend trying to take care of his own family. I'm like, this is like just thinking about how many episodes this ran for. I just like immediately was uninterested. Not to spoil our post breakdown question.
So one of the wildest things that happened in this pilot is, we haven't really talked about it, but the house that the Camdens live in is one of the most gorgeous pieces of property I have ever seen. We're talking like probably a 5-bedroom, 5-bath mansion with a room for a basketball court and like a full backyard and a gorgeous front yard. No
taxes is a hell of a drug, my friend.
Well, also, we come to find out it's really nice when a older woman who was friends with the church dies and donates her house to whomever is the minister at the time for the church. And that's like, you know what? Let's sort of push away this.
That woman made her money by selling AR-15s to the Nicaraguan Contras.
Oh my God, Rich.
That's some nice Reagan era backstory to this show.
So we sort of like, Lucy's upset. Mary offers to take her on a jog. And in this process, in order for Mary to like make Lucy go on the jog, she brings a tampon with her just in case Lucy has her period during this. Like the entire... that I can't say I've experienced a period, but the entire use of this plot device was just wild. Of like, Lucy just wants to have her period, and that it more than anything in the world. And when she finally, spoiler alert, when she finally gets it, you would think she just found out she won the fucking $1 billion lottery, because she is jumping around the house being like, Dad, you have to go to the pharmacy to get me tampons.
I will say that this is the most relatable part of the show for me, because every kid wants to be an adult when they're the age of 12. The last thing you want is to be associated with childhood anymore, which sucks. Like, stay small. What's don't grow up. Never grow up, kid. But yeah, this is like the most relatable thing in the show for me, I think. Like, you know, I didn't smoke when I was a kid because my dad smokes. And who wants to be exactly like their dad? Not me. Not anyone, really. But happy Father's Day, by the
way. While we're on the subject of like just what the kids are getting up to in the house, there's a youngest Simon son subplot here where he has a line of dialogue that I can only describe as, I want to shout it like a Tim Robinson character. And it's when he starts walking upstairs. Do it like a Tim Robinson character. He says, I'm going up to the attic to see if there's any dogs because I asked God today. And I just want you to like picture that like as an I think you should leave character. It's like, I'm going up to the attic to see if there's any dogs up there because I asked God today.
Patty Harrison, if you're listening, please submit. Please send us an MP3 if you're doing that line.
Oh my God. There's a couple of things that happened on this jog. One is we meet the neighbor / Matt's best friend, Jeff with a J, who is already my sworn enemy because he spells his name very incorrectly.
It's the majority of the way the Jeffs are spelled, my friend.
That's why I'm unique, Rich. Leave it alone. We learned that
I'm going to call him Gift from now on.
Yes. We learned that help me with my foul shot is now the only way that I'm going to be referencing making out with my wife from now on.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
And but like, it's this entire thing is just, it feels like fluff almost just in this episode. Like, yeah, sure, we could have these scenes, but at the same time, I'm getting nothing from them. The scene that I thought was the best was like, let's talk about Mrs. Bink, because Mrs. Bink is wild. The entire idea of Matt's job is insane. Like, Max, what was this job?
All right, so the job that Eric gets his son is there's an old woman who's a friend of the church that needs help around the house. So Matt is going to assist Mrs. Big and make $20 an hour, which in 1996 money for a teenager is buku bucks. Good job, Matt. I would love that job.
Fuck yeah,
and
dude.
he gets there, and of course, it's a setup. Mrs. Bink is this crotchety old woman who has an oxygen tank and supposedly lost a lung. And, this is the example of Matt's going to learn about the dangers of smoking from Mrs. Bink. However, he also gets to drive around in her absolutely bitchin' Ford Mustang.
Yeah.
This woman has a thick ass car cruising around in, I don't know, Pasadena, probably Pasadena, wherever they are in real life in this. I think I saw the house was filmed in Altadena, which is out that way too, for the LA locals listening to this. Yeah, just absolutely bitchin' Ford Mustang. Great performance by Academy Award nominee Eileen Brennan.
Yeah.
This is such a get for a wild part. For those not familiar, Eileen Brennan, Oscar nominated for her work in Private Benjamin with Goldie Hawn. Also played Mrs. Peacock in the film Clue, cult classic of the 80s. The reveal. We got to just talk about the reveal.
The reveal was fantastic. Like, I have no notes.
This dad's going to solve his problems in an unconventional way, like hiring actors. So our reveal that Max is referencing to is, it turns out that Mrs. Bink was faking the entire time. Matt had a side deal with his dad that if he quit this job, he'd have to go to church for 6 months in a row to be able to show some form of a commitment. So Eric Camden stacked the deck against his child, basically making it genius. I love him.
Mrs. Bink would make herself as miserable as possible. She has both lungs. She rented an oxygen tank and is sending the bill to Eric Camden, which is wild. That's like 10% of his salary.
And then as soon as Matt walks out the door, she does like the Willy Wonka roll back onto her feet. And is cruising around town in that bitchin' Ford Mustang.
I love that he solves his problems the same way as George Bluth from Arrested Development, because George Bluth literally hired actors to try to teach his kids lessons. This is like directly stolen from Seventh Heaven.
So, gentlemen, I have some important information for you.
Please.
Did you know that if you ask God for a dog, your mom might end up getting you a dog? Because we find out that Simon gets this dog because his mom just wanted to see the shelter and then ends up buying this dog named Happy. Turns out that is Happy's actual, the dog that played Happy.
Starring Happy as himself.
Happy. Yes, Happy as himself.
Well, when you get a cameo that big, they just get to play themselves.
This was interesting because throughout the episode, we sort of referenced that the communication between the Camden parents, of how to parent their children, is sort of slightly off. There's always missing each other and having these conversations, having these talks, whether it's Matt going to pick up Annie's parents from the airport or buying this dog, which Annie has the ultimate comeback line of saying, well, they were going to put down the dog if I didn't get the dog, which I feel like you can't be like, well, yeah, why'd you get the dog?
It wins.
Because then
you can't argue it.
Yeah.
Then this show gets canceled right away. If Eric is like, bring the dog back, it needs to get put down.
Send him back as a lesson. Tell him Reverend Camden sent you.
So, what did we think of the ending of this pilot? when Annie's parents are at the dinner table, first offer to get Matt a CD player for the station wagon. But then we sort of get this foreboding mention of like, hey, there's something we need to talk about in person.
Yeah. So when Grammy Camden comes to town from Arizona, um, she talks about wanting to get the stereo system, get the CD speaker for the car, and she has a line where it's like, it could wait, but why not do it now? And I think I let it like an audible like, oh, when I was watching that scene. Yeah, grandma has acute leukemia and doesn't want to go through painful rounds of treatment. And
She's about to go to eighth heaven.
Has basically accepted that, you know, her life has run its course and she wants to spend her remaining days with her family and loved ones. It's a tender ending. I have a really big problem with, and I'm gonna use a big Geoff Kerbis word here, juxtaposition between
hey, there you go,
grandma and grandpa and the parents like sitting at the table, like we see them through the window having like a real like tender family moment, like your mom's gonna die, and then on the outside are all the kids laughing and playing with the dog, and these things are happening at the exact same time with the exact same musical underscoring, and then it ends with a fucking freeze frame. Are you kidding me?
Hell yeah,
well,
dude.
you missed the part where we also find out not only are the Camdens having sex and the children trying to make out with each other, but Happy's also having sex because Happy turns out to be a girl and is having puppies.
We've completely skipped over Simon training his little sister like a dog and making her respond to dog commands. That's going to fuck her up later in life. We haven't even talked about Jeff and Mary playing one-on-one and Matt getting mad at his best friend and just him being like, no, it's not cool because that's my sister. Like, I know what you're going to try and do to my sister.
Well,
we haven't even talked about Mary's talk with her parents about finally being able to date boys who are a year or two older than her. There's so much that we skipped over.
Well, why is this a negotiable thing?
Max, because of those things, let's talk about things we loved about Seventh Heaven.
I love when parents control their children's dating. I love that.
That maybe we didn't get into when we talked about the plot of this pilot. Max, because you had so many things on your mind, what's a thing that you loved about Seventh Heaven? And
that
no, you
physically
can't
had the most plots of any show we've covered. God.
More than Secession.
I actually do love the character of Mrs. Bink. I think that's like the one fun game in this pilot. I think that it also shows that while this is such a plain Jane kind of morality show, even the pacing is very weird in it. It has like this little tidbit of like, but we could get goofy. And I'm sure that's how they pitch it to you. Like, you know, Mrs. Big, we could get goofy.
We like to have fun here.
But yeah, we're cool. We're a family. We're cool.
Oh, God.
Rich, what about you? Any things that you loved about this pilot that...
I'm so glad you brought up the dog thing because that was so friggin' funny to me. Like, that was, if there was supposed to be a moment of humor, that was I think the kid's name is Simon. Okay, Simon deciding to instead practice having a dog by treating his younger sister like one, and she just is down for the ride because it's just like playing with her older brother. I love that. That was super, super funny. You know, if this is a, oh God, why can't I think of the word of for non-religious? This is like a
secular,
if this is a secular show with similar values, I mean, this is like a step below the Cosby Show, which we are gonna do. This is like a step below the Cosby Show in terms of like morality TV, like good feeling, like family TV. But I don't know, just the Christian part just rubs me the wrong way. Like, I know that for a lot of people that was the reason they watched, and it's, you know, my dad's Catholic. Like, it's not like I don't have that Christian part of my upbringing, but it's just like it's so heavy-handed. I know we're talking about things that we do like. it's gonna be Mrs. Bank, who probably doesn't come back in the entirety of the show.
Yeah, I would also say Mrs. Bank is like one of the highlights of this. I will say,
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up.
So
I'm gonna see how many episodes Eileen Brennan was in. Keep going, Jeff.
So one of the things that I will say is people sometimes get dogs for really bad reasons.
Uh-oh.
Right?
What are you about to tell us about your own dog?
Oh, sometimes, it's so cute, or I'm lonely. I need a companion. Or this will help me pick up women, which is something someone once told me before they got a dog. But the reason why Simon wants a dog was one of the best reasons I've ever heard someone say they want a dog. I am no longer the baby. I want someone, and you don't spend enough time just focusing on me. So I want someone who's as obsessed with me as you used to be when I was the baby. Is one of the most bonkers fucking things I have ever heard. And it is so sad. But at the same time, I'm like, that's a pretty good reason to want a dog. So,
Is that why you got the dog? Because Alex stopped spending time with you? This week's Max, TV Pilot's License is brought to you by the ASPCA. Remember, adopt, don't shop.
All right, I've got great news, everyone.
Is Mrs. Bink in 2 episodes?
Mrs. Bink appears in 9 episodes in the show's run.
Yeah, let's go.
That's called an arc, baby.
Which is more than other people who had arcs, including Gabrielle Union, Mila Kunis, and Jane Lynch, but fewer episodes than people who had arcs, including Ed Begley Jr., Ashley Simpson, and Haley Duff.
Hillary Duff's sister?
The one that sang? For real?
Well, hey now.
Oh, there we go. There's those puns.
Damn it.
All right. I think what everybody was listening to this podcast for, what are our wait a minute moments of this pilot?
Oh, do we only get one?
Well, I'll start us off, and you gentlemen can follow up. To Jeff and Mary playing their one-on-one basketball. Just a word of advice, Jeff. If you are planning on playing one-on-one basketball, you might want to face the fucking basket when you have the ball. You fucking moron. He just starts... The actor, God bless him, I don't know what his name is, but he just starts facing the absolute opposite direction of the basket and goes into his best and one basketball style moves, which are he can dribble between his goddamn legs. And I'm just sitting there being I'm waiting for him to try to do a backwards layup almost, and then we never see it. So also, Jessica Biel, I give you credit for making the couple baskets we saw you make, but also jumping when you're shooting a free throw is nuts. Calling a free throw a foul shot is insane. Just call it a fucking free throw. That's my basketball rant for the day. What are some of your wait a minute moments?
I got to give a wait a minute to the director of this pilot episode, one Sam Weissman. And if that's not familiar to you, you may know some of his work from the 90s and early 2000s, including films like D2, The Mighty Ducks, the Brendan Fraser, Leslie Mann, George of the Jungle, and of course, one Dickie Roberts' former child star.
What? Also, having a guy with the last name Weissman shoot the Seventh Heaven pilot is fucking insane.
Yeah, it feels like sabotage.
The Jews did it again.
My actual wait a minute, though, is just how slowly paced this pilot is, coupled with how clunky the line readings are. This is not a cast where acting is a lot of their strong suits, at least not at this point in the show's run. And for being 44 minutes and then the commercials on top of it, it felt like it was 2 hours. This is one of the longest dragging episodes. It's like the stakes are so low, the pacing is so slow, and the line readings are so you go. and now you go. It feels like the world's longest after school special, and it's almost I don't even know if it was fun to watch for me. It just felt like it kept going
It
on and on, like church.
Yeah, I was about to say, it feels a lot like I am sitting down for an hour church sermon, right? And like an hour of church. There's some singing, there's a miracle that happens that we talk about, and then,
There's a basketball.
Yeah, basketball is a very big part of my Sundays at church. Rich, what about you? What about any wait a minute moments for you?
God, I couldn't agree more. I have written in all caps and bold, this episode feels 39 minutes too long. This is a web series at best. This is like, I tried to keep track of all the plot notes at the bottom just to see like, oh, this character wants this character wants this is the conflict here. And I have a total of 4 notes. Lucy wants her period. Mary wants to kiss someone. Matt wants Mary not to kiss someone. That is that is truly it. And also my wait a minute moment has to do, it got confirmed a little bit by searching the Seventh Heaven Reddit thread, in that Matt is extremely obsessed with Mary's virginity in a way that makes him look way weirder than her trying to practice kissing him. And that is what do you got, Jeff?
Well, Rich, you know who else are really obsessed with some woman named Mary's virginity?
Oh God! Wait, put on your youth pastor voice.
Well, children, it's. Oh my God! I just happened to find this guitar. So we're going.
While we're wrapping out of this topic, moving on to the next, this is usually where Jeff would tell us his Daddy of the Week, and
we don't have one.
Less of a Daddy of the Week and more of a Father of all time. That's right. I'm talking about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ himself.
This won't be the last time. This is Jesus's first nomination for Daddy of the Week.
I think that Jesus absolutely. Other than that, maybe Mrs. Bank. Mrs. Bank definitely. Mrs. Bank and her bitchin' Mustang get a Daddy of the Week.
Daddy of the Week is just the Ford Mustang.
It's the car.
The Mustang gets.
This is the Ford Mustang's third nomination for Daddy of the Week.
So, thank you both for your nominations. I think that we'll have to get back to everyone on who has won that. Put your Daddy of the Week nomination below this podcast, and maybe we'll consider it.
Yeah,
text 1 for the Ford Mustang, text 2 for Jesus Christ.
Or leave us a voicemail. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, voting ends at the end of the episode.
So
I'm looking up the American Idol phone number right now.
Talking about voicemails and DMs, we actually did get an in-flight question that I love. And that was, what was the weirdest way your parents tried to teach you a lesson? Eric Camden chose to fake jobs for his children and also just take their allowance money back because they spent it in a way that they felt was appropriate, that he felt was inappropriate. So I am curious, for you two gentlemen, what is the weirdest way your parents tried to teach you a lesson when you were a kid?
I feel like my parents did a pretty decent job of not trying to go out of bounds to try to teach me lessons about things. I'm sure there was I learned lessons on my own by being just embarrassed by my parents a little bit. I mean, not in a way that was malicious or anything like that. In the same way, it's I snuck food when I was a kid. I had porn on my computer, or it's just it was stupid shit that my parents were very understanding about, but also just fucking roasted my ass, which is very funny.
Max, any come to mind for you?
I was an only child of the 90s, man. I got away with a lot of shit. No, I mean, I feel like the only thing that I could really think of is having to do the and now you're going to go outside and you're going to, pour the liquor bottle out yourself. You're going to turn it over and you're going to pour it out in the driveway. Just the the underage drinking in a basement when you're in high school kind of thing. But I don't have like a crazy, like, you're going to sit here and smoke this entire pack of cigarettes kind of story, if that's what you're looking for.
That's what
I'm sorry, listener.
That's how they punish me for sneaking food. It's like, all right, we're going to go outside and smoke this entire pack of cigarettes.
So you'll never be hungry. So I will give my parents credit. They did a pretty decent job as far as not
What a
going
well-adjusted podcast.
Off the reservation as a whole.
There's
one lesson that I will keep for a while. You guys remember when cars used to have the cigarette lighters in the back seat?
Mm-hmm.
So being a 7-year-old child, I thought that was the coolest fucking thing in the world. And I took that cigarette lighter and I then realized, oh shit, this thing is hot. So I put it out in the leather of my mom's new car in the middle seat. So what I then had to do was I was forced to sit in the middle seat, even if there was no one else in the car for a small period of time.
That's so funny.
Which, like, you know what, Mom? That was a great lesson. And I am terrified of those things now because I'm just like, oh no, I'm going to damage my own car with it. So, but for that in-flight question, thank you so much. We'll talk a little bit more about how you can submit an in-flight question at the end of the podcast. But now let's talk about history. This one's a little bit interesting because there were 11 seasons of the show and 243 episodes. But this show, being that it was one of WB's first, is really intriguing as far as the numbers, right? So this show lasted for 10 seasons on the WB before the WB converted to the CW that we now know it as today. But even though it was one of the most watched shows on the WB, it peaked at number 94 at its peak ever. It never got above an average of, I think, like 9.7 million viewers at a time. And we're talking about TV in the 90s, and that is not the best numbers. And this sort of speaks to the idea of trying to break through major network television.
Yeah.
Which it was an entirely different game back then. As far as awards, it got 75 nominations and won 19 of them. It did get nominated for one Creative Arts Emmy, but that was it. A majority of its award nominations and wins came from Teen Choice Awards and Young Artist Awards, but surprisingly, not a Cradle to Grave winner because it only got a bunch of nominations. It didn't really win much outside of the Teen Choice and the Young Artists. This show was syndicated on a variety of channels, but then it got actually replaced by Gilmore Girls on ABC Family when they were casting it. So
I can't wait to do that pilot.
You picked a much better show, and I can't wait to do it. Either if you want to watch the show, you can find it on Hulu and eat your heart out. I'm betting there is not that much stress on that file as far as people demanding to watch it. Rich, I got great news for you. Don't worry. All of the seasons are on DVD.
Yeah.
Or you can buy the complete series DVD collection for, wait for this statistic, the complete series with all 243 episodes is a 61 disc set that you can buy. And I can't even. So this show has two interesting legacies with two of its actors. Max, you want to talk about Jessica Biel a little bit?
I mean, this is basically a case of one of the leads trying to get themselves fired from the show and pretty much successfully did. So if you look at the IMDb, Mary is maybe half the number of episodes as even Happy is. Happy's got like twice the number of IMDb episode credits that Mary does. And a couple seasons in, Jessica Biel basically felt that she wasn't getting roles because of this show and like wanted to go out and take other bolder roles. And she like posed for like a men's car magazine called Garage to be like, I'm like scandalous and edgy and I'm not like Mary. And like the producers Lawson, and from what I can tell and from what I've heard, like very ungraciously wrote her out of the show entirely. I mean, she's done well. I mean, marrying Justin Timberlake's a mistake, but other than that, I mean, she's done pretty well.
Can't stop.
But
the
now
feeling.
we gotta talk about the other one. So we gotta talk about the other one, don't we?
Yeah, we're gonna brush over this really quickly. Stephen Collins is not the greatest person. There were allegations of him committing some pretty heinous acts, and then 2 years after investigations were complete by the LAPD, he did an interview in People magazine admitting to having inappropriate sexual conduct with 3 female minors throughout the years. And ever since that happened, he has not really worked. That's all we're going to say about it. It's gross. The idea that he was playing a minister in this show, it paints an entirely different light of the show as a whole. And I think that, not that it's going to influence our decision-making much, it definitely hurts the legacy that this show did have. Ending on that bright note of legacy, Rich, what's your game of the week?
Thank you so much for that lead-in. I can't thank you enough. Good God. Wow. This game is going to be called Holy Shit. So I have 7 plot lines here. I did not know that about Stephen Collins. I'm so glad that I just discovered that on air. I have 7 plot lines, and that here. I'm like really frazzled now. I'm like, I have no idea how to bounce back from this. Oh man, 11.
Do you want me to talk more about Jessica Biel? What do you want me to do?
11 seasons, 11 seasons of this, and I'm so glad I made the Cosby Show comparison now. Anywho, sex, crime, TV, dad. All right. I want to hear about these 7 plot lines of whether or not this really happened on Seventh Heaven. Jesus, boy, did this really take the wind out of the sails. Okay. Oh, man. Okay. All right. First one. Jeff, this one's for you. Simon kills a kid while driving, and he gets taken on vacation to quote-unquote forget about the manslaughter. Did this really happen on Seventh Heaven?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's the other name. That's the other name for the show, for the game.
I don't know the account on TikTok, but there is a man who.
Oh, I do. I want to shout him out.
It's a comedian, Rob Anderson,
and he goes by Heartthrob Anderson on TikTok and Instagram. And I just want to give him a shout out because I don't think I would have even thought about recommending the show for this, and if it wasn't for Rob, because
I will say it was one of Rob's videos that was posted onto Instagram Reels that a listener of this podcast tagged us in. It was like, you guys need to do this show. So thank you to our listeners. Thank you to Rob Anderson.
So I think, Rich, I am going to say this happened. Let me clarify why. I think that when you say he killed someone, it's not like he just was like, oh, I found a knife and like I've seen my parents play with these and then he like off someone. But I think it might be a little bit more complicated than that, and like there might be some emotional trauma lesson we need to learn
Rich
about.
Rich said it's vehicular manslaughter. What do you think that is?
Yeah. No, good. Yeah. No, Jeff, you're right. There is a vehicular manslaughter plotline for Simon, who in the pilot episode gets a dog. All right, Max, number 2 is for you. Simon again threatens to kill himself because he can't wear baggy pants.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, this show in its middle seasons, we're in prime like new metal territory. So yeah, baggy pants were definitely going to be in. Yeah, I'm going to say that's a real.
This is definitely around the time when like people in the Senate were making rules about like, oh yeah, pants can't be below certain space. Like,
well,
right?
As we know about the Camden's parenting, it's all about the he said, she said.
Oh my God.
God,
Jesus.
Damn it.
Max, you were correct. That is a real plot thing that happens to Simon in Seventh Heaven. Jeff, next one's for you. There's 7 of these, so buckle in. Annie
my God.
Annie reveals that part of her family was actually Jewish, so Reverend Camden decides to teach his kids about Judaism by playing Barbra Streisand and cooking them brisket.
I have to say yes, 100%. Like, even though, let us be clear, canonically during the 90s, the Rugrats was the most Jewish TV show.
Over Seinfeld?
Yep. Seinfeld never did a Passover episode or a Hanukkah episode, so yes.
God. Oh my God.
But yes, I'm going to say Seventh Heaven wanted some of that Jewish influence in there.
That is one I made up. Max, Reverend Camden is called in to help a family whose daughter was suspected of being involved in gang activity, and instead of helping, he just tells the parents to dump the child out of state.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
That feels like real, like the Reverend's got to help out the family kind of shit.
That did really happen. Jeff, the family dog, drops a joint in front of Reverend Camden, and he spends the rest of the episode trying to figure out who it is, even questioning their 11-year-old son.
100%.
Yeah, that one did. That one did in fact happen.
It was the dogs.
No one ever suspects Happy. There's a reason that he's called
Why do you think he's named Happy?
All right, Max. Fearing his sister Mary will lose her virginity, Matt fights her friend Todd, knocks him out, and spends the night in jail. Instead, Mary ends up not going to prom with Todd and waits in the police station all night.
Ooh.
Yeah, everything you say is true until proven otherwise.
Well, that's a terrible judicial system that we live in. That one I did make up. All right, Jeff, the very last one. After Mary considers auditioning to be an exotic dancer, Reverend Camden decides to bring in the entire club's worth of strippers over to ask them if their job path would have been different with a Christian upbringing.
Wait, what? Like, I'm just doing the math on this.
Stripper interview, Jeff. Keep up.
Yes, 100%. Let's go.
That one I also made up.
No, Rich. I need that now.
Unfortunately, if anyone's writing a Seventh Heaven reboot, just pay me to smoke weed and come up with plot lines all day.
Well, Stephen Collins isn't doing anything, so who knows? Well, Rich, thank you for that game of the week. I am amazed and terrified of how you were able to create things that I truly thought this might have been episodes.
This game took 3 minutes. I've only watched one episode. That's how easy this was.
So, gentlemen, I have 2 questions for you before we land this plane. And that is, 1, would you continue watching this TV show? And 2, do you think that a version of this TV show belongs on TV today? Rich, why don't you tell us?
Yeah. I'm going to say no on watching more episodes. And the reason being is I'm so glad that you guys told me about the ending of the episode because I fell asleep during it. I did not watch the last 5 minutes of this episode and it was bad. So I will not be continuing to watch unless the TV just auto plays the second episode. No, I'm not watching this again. And yeah, let's bring Stephen Collins out of retirement and get him back on the air. No, please do not reboot this TV show. Please do not make another version of this TV show. I think there are so many other stories to be told. There's so many other perspectives than white Christians in California. Cut it out. I don't want a Hillsong version of Seventh Heaven. Please stop.
Max, what about you?
I can't see myself getting through more of this show. I have heard about bonkers plot lines in this show, and I have heard that, like, as it goes on, it truly goes some insane places. And listen, I'm intrigued. I want to see that wacky shit, but like, I don't think I could do it. It's just, I don't know. It's too after school special for me to want to keep wasting my time with it. As far as, could this show be made today? Could a show like this be made today? I don't think so either. Again, it's just that after school special vibe doesn't jive with me, especially if you think about like the bonkers stuff that like CW, formerly WB, is doing now. Like, I can't picture this show and Riverdale being on at the same time.
Why not? There's an equal amount of trying to fuck in it.
It's a lot of no's for me, dog. Sorry, Michigan J Frog.
So would I continue watching this show? This is one of those TV shows where when Hulu was like next episode, I just shut off my computer. Like, I didn't even give it the shot of loading up. As far as rebooting this show, or a version of the show, we mentioned the idea of like, I think you should leave. I would pay so much money. So like, I will empty my savings for Tim Robinson to try to do one of the plot lines of this show with the cast of I Think You Should Leave, and try to do it as seriously as they can, because that is the only reboot of this show that I want in my life. I want that so badly. With that being said, no, don't do it. Right? Like, there's no awards unless you. Teen Choice Awards are basically, you know, what they are. Everyone knows. Like, no one. There's not enough prestige behind this show. There's not enough of a history other than like, holy shit, remember when Simon killed someone and went on a vacation? Like, that's how people talk about this show. And yeah, sure, maybe we need more TV with lessons behind it, but this ain't it. Let's try something else.
I would watch.
This guy's acting like he's too good for the Teen Choice Awards. You get a surfboard, man. Come on, a surfboard.
Yeah,
I do need a surfboard in Minnesota, so maybe I need to write something.
this all seems like a show that Christian kids were forced to watch as punishment. Seems to be the entire nature of this TV show. So
you start off with Veggie Tales, and then you're given Seventh Heaven.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you watch the Duggar Family. So with that all being said, that our plane has landed. Before we are off the air, gentlemen, where can we find you two?
You can find me interviewing an entire club's worth of strippers in my living room, and also on Instagram. Damn, that's rich.
Max, what about you?
You can find me cruising around Pasadena in a stolen red Ford Mustang. You can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me yelling at Matt and Mary to stop it. Just stop it. Stop it.
Matt, spray him with the sprayer.
You can find me on social media at Run Jeff Run. You can find the TV Pilot's License anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. If you have a question about the show, maybe you have a recommendation for our next episode, you can email us at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com, or you can give us a call at 213-290-1713. We can't wait to hear you.
Do it. We get really excited when we get a in our Google inbox.
It's like,
we get really excited about it.
It's like the opposite of how we treat our normal lives.
Oh my god. Make sure to watch out for our Instagram for sneak previews of some of our upcoming episodes, because coming up, y'all, we are recording something super duper special, and I can't wait for y'all to hear it. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then, incest is bad. Don't do it.